I think women are the strength of the country, not just breaking barriers. I mean, when the revolution happened, it was the women, the frontliners. It was the women who were facing the tear gas at in the front. I always say the Lebanese will kneel and then stand up. It's like a prayer. You kneel for a prayer and then you stand up and continue with your life. And this is the routine of most of the Lebanese. We kneel, but we never fall. We always pull ourselves and stand up again.
Welcome to the St. Martin's Cloak podcast, where we go behind the headlines to focus on humans, not statistics. In today's episode, our first, we're recording from Lebanon with the Lebanese NGO Ahla Fawda to hear from their co-founder and director, Imane Assaf, about humanitarian aid efforts in her country. But first, a quick introduction. Good morning, everyone. This is Andrew Loftusness recording from Istanbul.
Hi, everyone. This is Milos Majore recording from London.
Milos, episode 1, how you feeling?
Feeling pretty good about it. It has to be said that this has been a long time coming. I think we've had this plan for a couple of months now, and it's good to finally get it on the road.
Yeah, I'm excited. We've been planning this for a while. I just got back from Lebanon, as we will discuss in the interview. Of course, it was a great trip.
Yeah, and we'll want to delve deeper into your visit to Lebanon, which obviously must have been a fascinating experience for yourself. Have you actually been there before, or this was your first time, right?
No, yeah, this was my first time in Lebanon. I had wanted to visit for a very long time.
Yeah, and I think it was interesting for us to start off with Lebanon, and in particular with Ahla Fawda, the organization that we interviewed, because of this intersection of these big geopolitical events along with the resulting humanitarian crisis, but also looking at how a smaller organization deals with it rather than, a big multinational or a government itself. So we wanted to explore those dynamics, and you'll hear more about it in the episode. But we've got loads of episodes planned in the coming weeks. So, do stay tuned on that. There's some of the topics that we want to cover include a lot of the countries that have made the headlines in the previous months and years, including Ukraine and Sudan and Gaza, to name but a few. But obviously, just want to put it out there already that if any of our listeners have any situations, countries, organizations they think we should be talking about, please write in. We've got an email address that will be linked out in the description below. And you can also find us on social media and Instagram. So please do get in touch. We'd love to find ways to cooperate and work with you.
Yeah, 100%. Please reach out. The other thing I'll note is that we absolutely intend to look in the mirror as well. We want to do episodes on the home front, in my case, obviously in the United States, particularly over immigration and deportation issues. So along with every other place that Milos just mentioned, what we do not want to do is just give you guys random opinions from two random guys that you don't know. If we're going to do an episode on a place or a situation somewhere in the world, we want to actually speak with someone from that community and someone who works there professionally. So if we have not done an episode yet on a particular crisis or a situation anywhere in the world, it is because we are trying to find the right person to tell us that story.
So with that in mind, actually just bring us back to your visit to Lebanon, Andrew, just briefly, like how we got in touch with Ahla Fawda after scouting out a few different organizations, but they reached back out to us quite open about the interview. And soon thereafter, you actually went there, which was a fantastic opportunity. But give us a sense of what it was like just walking around Beirut and the people you met and talked to about the situation.
Yeah, so we'll talk about like the actual humanitarian issues and some of the very difficult situations that Lebanon is facing right now, of course, in the interview with Imane. So I'll just focus on Beirut itself as a city right now, which was fantastic. This was my first time in Beirut. It was my first time in Lebanon. I had been wanting to visit the country for a very long time. I'm glad that we were able to make it happen in this way. I'm glad that we were able to make it happen with Imane and Ahla Fawda. Beirut itself is a fantastic city. There's a great energy in the streets. The people are incredibly welcoming. The food, of course, which will be no surprise, was fantastic. I miss it now that I'm back in Istanbul, if I may say so. I love
I mean,
Turkish food.
you're talking to the guy living in London at the moment.
That's true. Sorry. Don't mean to rub it in. But no, it was a great trip. It was very meaningful, and I'm very happy that we were able to make great connections in Beirut itself. So just very quickly, I wanted to take a moment and say thank you to our friend Iman and our friends in Lebanon from Ahla Fawda.
Imane and the rest of your team at Ahla Fawda, you've been fantastic. Thank you so much for working with us, helping us get this project off the ground and allowing us to record your story and for you to tell it to the world. So looking forward to visiting Lebanon again, and for the first time in my case. And while this episode does touch on obviously a lot of heavy stuff, there was a great bit towards the end where we allowed Imane to give us a sense of the beauty of Lebanon itself, and not only the culture and the history, but also what it's like to just live there and hear some stories that aren't the tragic ones that seem to be the only ones we hear about in the news when hearing about Lebanon. So, listeners, look forward to that as well.
Yeah, 100%. And that's another thing that I felt very grateful about during the trip when I was actually in Beirut and now coming back. The truth, of course, is that Lebanon often comes up in American and European media only in times of crisis or disaster. But it's a beautiful country. Beirut is a beautiful city, and there's a tremendous amount of positive things there. There's fantastic people there that unfortunately most of the rest of the world either simply doesn't hear about or doesn't get the chance to experience themselves. But I'm definitely going to plug right now for international tourism to Beirut. It's a beautiful Mediterranean coastal city with great food and just a great social life in the streets. It has everything that you need.
With all that being said, however, let's talk about the actual humanitarian situation at hand and some of the situations that Lebanon has been facing for the past couple of years that were of interest to us going into this episode. So, the war between the Israeli army and Hezbollah that broke out following October 7th in 2023 has so far killed approximately over 4,000 people in Lebanon. And while a ceasefire deal was notionally struck in November of 2024, attacks have continued. There have been thousands of documented breaches of the ceasefire as Israeli bombardment of southern Lebanon continues on a nearly daily basis. Tens of thousands of Lebanese people remain displaced. And according to the Norwegian Refugee Council, Israeli forces conducted at least 50 airstrikes in January of 2026 alone, marking an escalation from previous months. At least 127 civilians have been killed by Israeli airstrikes since the signing of the ceasefire deal, and the Israeli army continues to occupy Lebanese territory at 5 different points in the south. And with all that being said, the war and its continued ramifications are not the only crisis afflicting Lebanon. There's no shortage of high-level political assessment on these situations, and while that does have its place, our focus today is on the people of Lebanon. So as we mentioned up top, we spoke to Imane Assaf, who is the co-founder and director of the grassroots NGO Ahla Fawda, based in Beirut, which translates in English to beautiful chaos. She and her team at Ahla Fawda are really the kind of people who look at these difficult situations that we mentioned and ask, well, what can we do? How can we help? And that is just such an emblematic reason of why we wanted to speak with them and get a sense of what her and her relatively small team can do and how they respond to these situations. So, as we mentioned, Andrew, you traveled to Beirut to speak with Imane, and we both learnt about not only the humanitarian response to the war and displacement from Lebanon, but also the situation in Syria, as well as children from Gaza, the Beirut port explosion back in 2020, as well as other thematic roles and situations that we maybe don't hear about all too often in the news, specifically the role of Lebanese women in civil society, as well as the importance of art in a local community, and many more topics that I think we should let Imane explain for herself.
Thank you, everyone, for listening. Please subscribe and follow us for more. And now we bring you Imane Assaf. I was wondering if you could tell us about the history of Ahla Fawda and how you even start a group that can respond to so many different crisis situations.
How I responded to different crisis situation. We live crisis every day in Lebanon, so it's not difficult to respond to crisis. Um, Ahla Fawda started from a very personal initiative. My kids were young. I wanted to do something to entertain them, so I would do a Halloween event where I would go to the street, distribute candies to the shops, and then take the kids for trick or treating. I did this for a few years, and the number grew from 20 kids to over 120 kids. And my kids were growing. It's an event that I used to particularly really enjoy because I love the vibes of the street when we were walking all in our scary masks and all this. And at the same time, I felt the need to do something for the streets and to do something to teach my kids roots. So I approached the Association of Traders if they will allow me to close the whole street for a Halloween parade. And in return, I would turn a garbage area which is in the middle of Hamra Street, where it's one of the main streets in Beirut, to a green space. So they said yes, but obviously they didn't take me seriously because when the day came, the cars were zooming. I had over 700 kids on the street. The street was supposed to be closed, so they didn't close it. I don't think they understood what Halloween is or took me seriously. So we were able to control the situation. The kids had an amazing time. The people on the street had an amazing time. We were able to raise the funds and to turn that garbage area to a green space. And that was our first project. Ahla Fawda wasn't a plan, but the reaction it got on the street from this Halloween parade, the traders came and asked me, please, can you do more events? You revived the street, you boosted the economy of the street. So if you can register and do more events. So, and it was very important for me to do something for Lebanon and for my kids.
Mhm.
So we registered the NGO. We named it Ahla Fawda, which means the best chaos, based on the chaos it came from. And the plan in the beginning was to do street festivals, and after every street festival to be a project for the community. So we did our first festival in 2014. Uh, we were able to get more than 50,000 people on the street. So it was a real change for the street that has been suffering for a while to get this number of foot traffic on the street. And we did our first project as Ahla Fawda after the Green Garden. We did an awareness campaign for people with special need because Hamra, for example, it's one of the major streets in Lebanon. It used to be the address of art and culture. It has over 40 ramps where they should be accessible for people with special needs or pedestrians. They're always barred with a car parking there. So we did this awareness campaign where we planted road signs that don't park your car here. This is a passage. I brought kids from schools to do a community service, throwing on the ramps, a wheelchair, a blind person crossing, a mom pushing her baby stroller, just to bring awareness that this is a passage, not a parking area. It did make a difference, but you can't do anything without partnering with the law. There is a law, there is a penalty, but the police will be watching the car parking and not do anything. So one of the problems we face in Lebanon that the NGOs are very much doing the government work, but it doesn't really work because you need the laws to make it official, to make people realize that something has to be changed. So anyway, we did that awareness campaign, and then I would walk the streets. I always say that when I walk the street, I listen to the vibes of the street. I listen to the sound of the streets, and I would walk and see ugly walls, and I think this is not acceptable. There should be something. So we did the first mural. I think it was in 2015, and it really changed the landmark of the street. People normally used to walk looking sad. Now they look up to the wall and smile because we painted a famous singer called Sabah, and she was a very happy soul. So she was smiling, and now pedestrians walk, they look up and smile back at her. So it did change the vibes of the street. The mural, the building became a landmark. Any Middle Eastern airplanes coming to Beirut, it's always there as a landmark. It became touristic. So this how we started, where we would do festivals and work on urban projects, two humanitarian projects, a Christmas giving event, a Ramadan giving event, and slowly and gradually it grew and it changed to where it is today.
One of the things that really drew Andrew and I to your organization was exactly this community-based approach that you and Ahla Fawda have. And I think that something we found when covering international humanitarian crises and humanitarian organizations, that a lot of what gets covered in the news cycles has to do with the big organizations, whether it be the United Nations, the Red Cross, or the Red Crescent. So whether it be in the case of Palestine or even dealing internally in Lebanon with the 2024 war, could you talk to us a little bit about how you responded initially and how it was for you and your team as one of these smaller organizations?
Okay. In the beginning, my humanitarian projects were mainly to Syrian refugee camps. I remember I was at home and it was one of these very strong, freezing weathers where, the refugees live in those plastic tents. I remember it was very cold. The tents were full of water. So it hit me that, I'm sitting in my home with a heater, enjoying warm food. So from here came the idea that I have to do something for the refugee camps because they didn't have a proper roof over their head. And I remember how it started. I had some books that I wanted to give to an NGO, and they said to me, "No, we don't take books. Sell them and give it to us." And I thought, "Excuse me, sell them and give them to you? No, I'm not going to do that." And it was near my birthday, so I went on social media saying that it's my birthday. I want to start humanitarian mission. I need gifts. I need canned food. I need the toilet paper. I need clothes. And people started sending me things. And every time somebody would send me something, I would go on social media and say, "Mr. X, thank you for your donation." And then when I go to the Syrian refugee camps or the Palestinian refugee camps, I would always take pictures and show them that whatever they gave me went to the right people. Um, it was a very sensitive issue because the Lebanese, some of them have issues with the refugees in Lebanon because, Lebanon has, I don't know, 5 million population, and we have half of them in refugees. It's this very small country to have this number of refugees and a country that is already suffering with the economic crisis to take care of others. So it was very sensitive, but for me, it was an issue that these people didn't have a roof over their head. So my focus in the beginning was the refugee camps. In 2019, when the revolution happened and the collapse of the economy in Lebanon, my priority became the Lebanese because the people lost their money in the banks, they lost their jobs, they lost their livelihoods. So the shift went to how I can support the Lebanese. And at that time, there were no more festivals because we had a crisis. So I couldn't do events to entertain people. I had to support people without an event. So it was my first time starting to ask for people to help me and support me in my mission. And it worked. People were kind. So we shifted to from two humanitarian missions per year to a weekly humanitarian mission, going to different villages in different areas of Lebanon and giving them food. And in 2019, it was the beginning of COVID as well. Besides food, we were giving them COVID kit, masks, and detergents, and awareness what they should do to protect themselves. And it continued until the port explosion, which became a relief mission for more than a year and a major humanitarian mission. And that was the big shift where I had to create my first distribution center. It was a major shift. With the port explosion, we didn't think. We were. My daughter was near the port at that time as well, so I was one of the people who feared for the life of my daughter because she was very near the port. The explosion shook the whole country. The second day, I told my team, we can't sit at home. We have to go and remove glass from the streets. And then a week later, I thought, I'm not doing anything, cleaning the street from glass. I'm not really doing anything. I need to do more. So we started repairing homes. We started sheltering families. We started providing trauma care for kids who were traumatized, therapy. We, provided furniture, food, whatever they needed. And I didn't really need to worry about the money, even though I didn't have any funds, because the moment I started posting on social media what I was doing, every day someone will come with kind donation of either money, furniture, food, clothes. From overseas, people will call me, give us your bank account. We want to send you money. We were able to repair 140 homes without thinking about where will the money come from, because people were very kind, and we continued for as long as we were able to.
I think that very often in international media, when people report on refugees or internally displaced persons, the story is very often just represented as a number, right? 1 million people displaced from Syria, southern Lebanon, what have you. But if there's a million displaced people, that means there's also a million different stories. So when you think of the stories of the people that you've helped, what do you think of? What comes to mind?
I will give you a story that hit me so much in a Palestinian refugee camp. I went there, I'll actually tell two stories. I went to this Palestinian camp thinking that I'm doing something really great. I'm giving people. I gave this child a very big toy, and I was so happy that I gave this child a big toy. And then he came back to me and said, please, do you mind replacing it with a football? And I thought, this is a child who is deprived from everything, yet this is a child full of dignity. Instead of taking the toy and asking me for more, he came and asked, and he exchanged the toy for a football. And this represents the dignity of the Palestinian people. We go there, they're very kind, they offer us food, they offer us, they play music in gratitude, and they're always trying very hard to give something back for the good deed that we're trying to offer them. So we are always humbled by this act of giving to the Palestinian camps. Another story in a Syrian refugee camp. We went there with a British colleague called Ruth. And I always repeat the story because she told me how to redirect my mission. So in the refugee camp, they offered me coffee, and I said, no, thank you. They offered me sweets, and I said, no, thank you. And Ruth said to me, shut up, Imam. Take the coffee, drink it, take the sweet, eat it, sit down with them on the ground, play with them, talk to them. Uh, it's about the engagement. And it shifted my whole vision of what I'm supposed to do. So it's never an act of giving, it's an act of engagement. You go, you have to learn to live with them as if you're one of them. Talk to them as if you're one of them. Sit on the ground with them, play with them. So I learned a lot from these humanitarian mission, that it's never an act of giving and watching that, oh, I'm a good person, I gave. It's about engagement, living their circumstances or trying to live their circumstances, talking to them, learning about them. That's what makes all the difference. I live quite a privileged lifestyle. So do my kids. I wouldn't be exaggerating to say that most Lebanese live in a bubble. And I didn't want my kids to grow up in that bubble. I wanted them to face reality. If you want, most of the things I did in the beginning was from selfish reasons, where I wanted my kids to feel rooted, to appreciate their life, at the same time to appreciate how it's hard for others to live this kind of lifestyle, and to feel their responsibility towards their community. So I would take them with me on most of the missions. And I saw the change in some of the kids that would accompany me. I remember one time a school approached me and they said, "We want to send you books to give to an NGO." And I said, "I'm sorry, this is not how I work. You want to give books, we have to adapt a project." So they said to me, "What kind of project?" I said, "Well, I received a call from a refugee camp that they don't have a library in their school and they needed help. So if your kids are interested, we can go to the refugee camp and they see the school, they see the community, and from there we can decide what to do." So it was a big risk because schools feel responsible, and refugee camps is always a scary place to go to, the place of crime. And so it took some time before the parents approved on the condition that two teachers will come with us and we'll go in a school bus and we'll have protection from people in the camp. And I remember sitting in the bus, listening to these kids talking about, "I'm going to the movie, I'm going shopping, I'm going." I was thinking, oh my God, such spoiled brats. It was like I was so irritated. And when we reached to the camp, the kids saw what they've never ever seen before in their whole life, what their parents haven't seen in their whole life. We were walking under electrical cables just above our heads. Even sometimes we had to kneel down so we won't hit the electrical cables. And the refugees are living in these conditions all the time. Every year there are people who die from this. And this is one of the issues that they saw in the camp. And then they saw how kids' classes had hardly any chairs or tables, how the walls were very damp, and it shook them. It shook the kids in such a way that they raised funds. They came back and created a library. They brought music, toys. We painted the playground for the school. And it was about the exposure. So these kids are not nasty kids, but they've never had the exposure of seeing the other side. And once they were exposed to seeing the other side, their heart came out. Their act of giving came out, and they became the sweetest, nicest kids. They played with the refugees. It's a transformation. So, this transformation is one of the things I looked at in one of the missions when I started, and I focused on it for my kids and for others, that it should be a way to educate the community that it is our role to do something. We can't just sit and watch. We have a role to play, and it made a difference.
Within Lebanon right now, there's technically on paper a ceasefire in place, but in reality, of course, we know that there's weekly, if not daily, bombings in the south. What is the current situation there right now? And are the displaced persons that you've been helping, is it even possible for them to return?
Sadly, the ceasefire is another war because I think now the eyes are not focused on them, so they are targeting villages even more. They are killing people more. I think there have been more targets and more that situation than during the war from after the ceasefire. Some families have lost their homes, um, and they cannot go back to their villages. What I noticed was the people from the south that it is not an attachment to a political party. It's an attachment to the lands, to the roots. So when the ceasefire happened at 4 a.m., the cars were packed going back home. Some of them have put tents in their land just to be back home. They don't have their homes, they don't have their living means, but they are back home. This is a major focus for them. But you have families that their villages are still occupied. So they are either gone back to the south to be back in the south, or they are here in Beirut staying with families and waiting for the day to go back. So it's tricky for these families. It's the unknown, the fact of the unknown, and what tomorrow holds that is scary for them. And we see it when we deal with them. I don't know if I answered your
Oh, you did. No, you did. Thank you so much.
I tend to get carried away.
No, please. That's what we're here for.
Something you briefly touched on was the international collaboration effort. And when we spoke previously, you talked about how Ahla Fawda had partnerships with international organizations, including with USAID. And obviously the big story last year was how that organization got disbanded and aid abroad was severely limited, if not stopped completely. So could you talk to us a bit about how your work was with USAID and how that halting of aid impacted your operations in Lebanon?
USAID supported me in my mission of creating the Eco Hub. After the port explosion, when we started our distribution center, I took it one step further and created, by the support and the kind donation of people, to create the Eco Hub. And in the Eco Hub, I wanted to create workshops and mini market and, things to be able to serve the people more. So the USAID gave me a small fund and some training on how to manage my operation. But the impact of the USAID when it was canceled, that was a major effect. When the war happened in 2024, I had four university students who were working with me, and they were all on USAID. USAID was an amazing funding for scholarship. It didn't just cover scholarship, it covered living expenses, it covered insurance. It gave people hope in such a big way. And at the same time, it committed them to doing community service. So anyone who was on USA had to do community service. So I had these four students who worked with me to their duty towards their community at the same time because it was imposed on them to do the community service hours. They lost their homes. I had a young girl from the south who lost her home. Her father lost his shop. I had another young man from the suburbs of Beirut. The building he lives in collapsed completely. I had someone from the north and one from the Bekaa who didn't lose much, but everybody suffered due to the war. But they never stopped working. They never complained. They continued working with me. And when they went back to university, all was good until the decision came, the cancellation of the scholarship. For the first time, I saw in these kids the loss of hope. It was like, this is the last thing. We've lost everything. We even lost our education. So I thought it's my responsibility to support these kids the same way they supported me. And I went recently on a hike for my 60th birthday to Machu Picchu. And it was fundraising for these kids. And we were able to raise $6,000 for them to support some of their living expenses because the universities took responsibility of continuing their education even though there's no more funding. So this is my experience with the USAID, if you want. I have other international NGOs that supported me. There's an NGO called Purpose Earth who supported me also in the Eco Hub. And we built a very strong relationship with them where we're always on correspondence. We're always looking at ways of helping each other. They are struggling to get the funding like I am, but there's sometimes it's not just about the funding. Sometimes it's about the connection, the shared vision for the world, not just for your own community that keep pushing you to make a difference. So we do have a few international NGOs supporting, but I really appreciate more than the NGOs is the individuals who are supporting us from the international communities. I remember when the port explosion happened, I received a call from Brazil from a lady, and she said, "I want to help you. How can I help you?" And she sent me, I don't know, maybe she sent me something like $500. $500 for this Brazilian lady is equal to maybe $500,000. She made such an effort to raise these funds for me. So these individuals who struggle, who don't have the funds, but fight to support me, I really appreciate their effort because it's from the heart. And we're lucky. We have few who are still following us, who care for Ahla Fawda. They correspond with us sometimes. When the port explosion happened, a young gentleman raised over $70,000 Fawda to support in our home repair program. So people are kind. We always highlight on the evil fact, but there are a lot of good doers in the world.
So this is my first time in Beirut, as you know, because you've been showing me around everywhere generously. And one thing that I'll say that I noticed right away that I don't think people, international travelers, talk about very much is the city is very colorful. There's a lot of green, and of course, there's a lot of art all around the city, which
Art is me.
yes, I love it. So I definitely want to talk about that. You've shown me a number of very striking and beautiful murals. One in particular that you said was dedicated to women breaking barriers.
Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you, what is the story behind that mural? And what are some ways that you've seen women breaking barriers in Lebanon?
I think women are the strength of the country, not just breaking barriers. I mean, when the revolution happened, it was the women, the frontliners. It was the women who were facing the tear gas at in the front. I was approached by UN Women if we could do a project about women breaking barriers, and we partnered with an NGO in Tripoli on this project. My idea was to create a storyline between three parts of Lebanon, where, the north, the mountains, and Beirut, where young women will share their stories and will put these stories into a book and will give it to the artist to take their inspiration from these stories. So what struck me in this book, that there were women from the north who were saying, my parents wanted me to stay home because my brother should be a doctor, not me. Or another young woman who wrote that teacher tried to abuse her, or he did, I don't know. And the parents said, "Hush, we can't talk about this because of the pride of the family and the can't find the word, the uh, dignity or whatever." So other women who there had abusive fathers, abusive brothers, or just poverty. And what I noticed was the three parts of the community, their shared stories, it was all similar. It was all about the struggles, but was what very interesting. They never allowed the struggles to stop them from continuing. They continued. I mean, the girl whose brother should have been a doctor, she became the breadwinner for the family. She's the one who finished her education and started supporting the family and changed the mindset of her family to appreciate women in the family. Women, even I always say it's the power of the mind. I remember one time reading a book called Princess. It's about a Saudi princess. And even though she was deprived of everything, she always made a plan to make a difference. So it's about the power of the mind, the power of the will that sometimes take you places, whether you're a woman or a man or a child. It's about the power of the mind to make a difference. Circumstances do suffocate this will, but there's always a way to bring it out. So this is what I notice about women, that let barriers push them down. They break it and move forward. And I'm very impressed with women in our country. They're the silent doers in the background. They allow the man to do the talking, but they're the ones who are really making the difference and the change.
It's really great that you mention all of this. And I'm curious whether this is linked to the Femme Genius project, which is seemingly a cornerstone project of your organization that we came across when researching it. Could you talk to us a little bit more about that?
I found Genius. We got a small funding to empower youth, and we did a project to empower university students. It was very interesting, but we had to push for them to interact. And then I got another opportunity to get a funding to empower women. And I chose to empower women because the women who used to come for our support always said, can you help us to help ourselves? So we started this project a few months ago where we are teaching women to use their home trash as a mean to make a business. We work a lot on upcycling. So you have a plastic bag at home. Think out of the box how you can turn this bag into a tote bag or into a new product and an opportunity for you to stand on your feet and make a business for yourself. So it was very interesting because most of the women we got are the women who we supported in the relief mission in the war. And the women are so ambitious. They said to us, "This is great what you're teaching us. We are learning." And they come up with ideas while we're doing the sessions on how to even make more things. But then they came to us and said, "We want to teach our kids English, but we don't know how to speak it or how to help our kids. Can you have classes for us with our kids when we are both learning at the same time?" So we included this in the Farm Genius project. Women always think about how to improve their lives and their kids' lives. It's never about one thing, it's about their family. So it's very interesting with this group of women how we're moving forward. They come up with ideas, they tell us about their circumstances, where they live, how the men are not doing anything, how they can fight to make the streets better, how they can fight to have better laws for women. So they are aware, even though most of them come from who are vulnerable and come from underprivileged background, but they are aware of their rights. They are aware about how to improve their lives. They just needed this door opener to help them and guide them. Um, they have been an inspiration for us, to be honest. We are learning from them. They're great.
One thing that I definitely want everyone listening to know about is the EcoHub project. You showed me the campus, so to speak, the other day, and I was really impressed both by the ingenuity of the project as well as just the sheer number of people that you're helping. Could you explain to listeners exactly what the EcoHub project is and how that helps displaced families and everyone that you help?
I learned from my work that the worst thing I am guilty of, or I could be guilty of, is by turning a community to a dependent community. And I think most NGOs are guilty of doing that, even though it's a good win, but it's a very dangerous thing to turn a community to a dependent community. And this what I started noticing after the port explosion. Of course, in the beginning, it was depression, it was tragedy, but with time, it became dependency. That this NGO is giving us food, is giving us furniture, so we continue doing that. Plus depression for trying to look for a job. So for me, this became a major issue for me. That I didn't want my community to lose their dignity because once you lose your dignity, you lose yourself and you lose your country. So I started an initiative called Give and Receive, where anyone who wanted to benefit from our services have to bring their home recyclable trash. It was challenging in the beginning. They would say, "You want me to bring garbage, carry garbage with me to come for a food box?" And I would say, "Well, you want to carry the food box. You carry a bag of garbage, yes." So it was challenging. And then when they realized that they have the power of demand because they're bringing more than the requested 5 kilos of plastic, they started asking for more. And with time, they started bringing other type of trash. We know that you upcycle everything, do something with this. So we were changing their mindset about the power of demand and the power of having your recyclable as a mean of demand. And then in 2023, I received a call from Mrs. Randur saying, "I have a piece of land in Hamura, and if you have a community project that makes sense, I will give it to you rent free to use it." And the Eco Hub was a dream. The Eco Hub was like uniting all efforts that I'm doing in one place, from community service to art, culture to. So I presented the project to Mrs. Randour, and luckily we got the land to do our project. So we started with the Eco Hub. It started in the beginning with a waste unit where people will bring their waste and they take cash for it. But to me, this wasn't enough. To me, I also needed to sustain my operation and to teach them how to sustain themselves. So, with funding and support from CMA, who are a shipping company that have containers, we started putting containers in the Eco Hub. One container turned to a mini market, another container turned to a clothes boutique, another one to a bookstore. We partnered with an NGO called We Deserve Better so they can help us with the bookstore. With the clothes, we receive a lot of donation of clothes. With the mini market, we continue buying food, but it's also the main essential need for the community. And the Eco Hub currently is like a community center where the waste unit is like an eco bank. You deposit your waste, it's converted to eco currency, which is a one system. You take this eco currency, you buy your food, you buy your clothes, you buy your shoes, toys, books, stationery, anything you need with your trash. So your trash is cash and it's of value to give you the equal shopping opportunity that you need. But trash doesn't really cover my expenses. We sell the recyclables, but it doesn't give you the big funding. At the same time, I had a major cost of buying the food. And if I wanted the community to buy a bag of rice for 5 kilos of plastic, it will be exhausting for them. It will mean that they have to bring 50 kilos of plastic to benefit. So I started selling everything in the mini market on half price. And I created a program called the Green Heroes Program, where I spoke to businesses, hospitals, schools, like, you have a CSR policy. You need to support the environment, you need to support the hunger issue, the food security. So I will pick up your recyclables from your business for free and send you a report at the end of the month how you supported the environment and the food program. So it's a win-win because I am relieving you from garbage. I'm not charging you for the garbage, and I'm giving you a report. Well done. You supported community and environment. And this will help me to sustain the food program and to be able to sell the food at 50% less. So we started with 4 green heroes. Now we have about 180 green heroes. And these green heroes are really what is helping me to sustain the food program. Plus, we do get support of donations sometimes. So it's, if you like, the Eco Hub is the alternative mall to give equal shopping opportunity with the trash. But at the same time, we want to empower people. We don't want to be of service only to them. And I need to create production to sustain myself. So I'm teaching community to sustain themselves. I need to sustain myself as well. So we have in the Eco Hub an environmental school, an eco lab, where we create our own production of upcycling and we encourage schools to come and learn about waste, the climate, and the benefit of waste to the community and how they can upcycle and turn trash into product. So it's like an environmental school, a mall, and this is only in phase 1 of the project because I'm really looking at expanding the Eco Hub to become a full circle operation of alternative school and environmental school, an alternative mall, a cafe place, a conference area, a boutique, a gift shop of upcycled products. Expand in the shops that we have because now we only have one container where all the clothes are in. But imagine all containers for different type of services, the big alternative more. So this is the dream.
Yeah, I'll say when we visited the Eco Hub the other day, there's a true sense of community that you can really feel. I felt that with the young volunteers that we spoke to, the Ahla Fawda staff. As you were showing me around, there were people from the community just coming in and out to access the services or to ask you guys questions. I thought it was very special to see that. Something else I wanted to ask you about. A couple days ago, you were explaining to me the support that Ahla Fawda provided to Palestinian children and hospitals here in Lebanon. I believe you said you provided meals for iftar and other forms of aid. Could you tell us about that story?
There's a doctor who is bringing kids that needs operations to Lebanon and treat them. I mean, Palestinians, Lebanese, Syrians, anyone who is in trauma is part of my mission. So we invited these kids to come for an iftar and to come and play in our eco playground. We even have in the eco hub a playground made from upcycled materials. So we brought these kids, and to be honest, I didn't see kids. I saw a 3-year-old who is 80 years old in his mind capacity, in his vision of the world, in his cynical approach to life. It was heartbreaking seeing all these kids with no legs, no arms, yet the will to live, the will to fight, they are real heroes, these kids. Um, so again, they were a learning experience for us, but I did an iftar for them. The doctor is treating them. The community is taking care for them. What I did is nothing. It was a small gest that we care and that we're here to support when we can.
For what it's worth, I think it means quite a lot that you did that. Thank you for sharing that story with us. Um, just a couple of weeks ago in both Turkey and Syria, it was the anniversary of the earthquake on February 6th, 2023. And I know that Ahla Fawda had a very significant response on the ground on the Syrian side of the border. Would you be able to tell us about that humanitarian response?
You cannot talk humanitarian and just think humanitarian means only for one part of the community or only one group of the community. Humanitarian is an act of giving where it's needed. And when we were down, when the port explosion happened, people from all around the world were supporting us. So when the earthquake happened in Syria and in Turkey, it was our role to give back in any way we could. So we did create a relief mission and we did go up to Aleppo in Syria and to Deladi in Syria and provided support. So we went and we supported the communities there and we saw another type of grief. We saw Aleppo, for example, we saw a war destroyed nation. There was added crisis of homes lost and people afraid because it wasn't just one earthquake. There were 4 earthquakes that happened. And actually, on the day that we returned from Syria, another major earthquake happened. So we were lucky that we escaped that earthquake. And I remember calling them, and the lady from Caritas said to me, I cannot anymore. I cannot anymore. I don't know what we did to deserve all this. It's always the question in a crisis, what did we do to deserve all this? And it's always very powerful, the faith of the people that I noticed in these situations. It's like God's will, we will be okay. If this is God's will, we have to accept it. So it was a learning experience again.
On a more personal note, I was wondering what keeps you personally going throughout all of these challenges.
When the port explosion happened, we were like on autopilot. We didn't think. We were on the ground for 2, 3 weeks, constantly working. And then I remember 3 weeks later, I wasn't able to walk. Literally, I couldn't move. I was like paralyzed and it hit me. And I remember talking to a doctor, and he said, I'm not going to give you any antidepressant. Take supplements and fight back, Iman, because you have to fight back. You have to stand up, and there are people who need you. And I wasn't directly affected, yet I felt this. How about the people who are affected? So, what keeps me going is the need on the ground that doesn't stop. What keeps me growing is a note of a thank you note from someone. I'll give you an example. When we did the relief mission for the displaced families from the south, for 3 months we were on the ground constantly. We were cooking 2,000 meals per day, and we were taking care of 80 new families every day from unregistered shelters. So we were from 7 in the morning till 2 in the morning, working nonstop. And some days we will laugh hysterical, or we will cry in a hysterical way, or we will be cooking all and having fun, having a drink and cooking at the same time. And the people from the south would say, "Thank you for helping us. We would like to join you in the relief mission." So I had, for example, a lady who came every day to help in distribution of clothes to the displaced families. And the ceasefire happened, and they went back. 2 days later, she came back with 2 cars full of clothes as thank you and gratitude for what we did during the relief mission. People kindness, people care is what keeps me going. This give and take is so powerful that you can't just walk away from it. You feel more responsible, and you feel more grateful for the interaction you have on the ground. So I think this is what keeps me going. Plus my faith in Lebanon and my love for Lebanon.
So on that note, Lebanon, of course, faces a number of challenges, many of which we have been discussing today, others that we haven't had an opportunity to discuss. But at the same time, there's an immense amount of resilience, a very strong spirit. And I've noticed in the few days that I've been here, a lot of pride amongst the Lebanese people, and rightly so. When you think about these things, what gives you hope for the future? And what do you wish that people from the United States or Europe or Canada knew about Lebanon and the Lebanese people that they might not see if they're just scrolling or watching the news?
And perhaps to add to that question, what are some of the things that the rest of the world could learn from Lebanon, in your opinion?
It used to really bug me when people would say, "We are resilient. We will have a war, but we go party." But living the different situations, we are really very resilient. Yes, we do go party. Yes, we do go crazy in our nightlife. Yes, but we are resilient in other ways. We are resilient that we are every day facing the different negativity with an effort to make a change. Every day we stand together. We The news shows a divided country. The news shows religious frictions. But what I notice in crisis, a united front, a very strong united front, uh, whether in the port explosion, whether in the war, I was receiving support from Lebanese, from all over Lebanon. We stand together. This is our strength. This is our resilience. To the world, it's a divided country. To the world, there's a civil war. No, the civil war, it's a political agenda. But the people on the ground are very strong, united front. They love life. Their resilience is that they love life. They refuse to kneel down. And I always say the Lebanese will kneel and then stand up. It's like a prayer. You kneel for a prayer, and then you stand up and continue with your life. And this is the routine of most of the Lebanese. We kneel, but we never fall. We always pull ourselves and stand up again. And we don't just fight wars, we fight for our existence, we fight for our culture, we fight for our dignity, the standards of living, the heritage. Lebanon is, someone once said to me, Lebanon was mentioned in the Bible for more than 7 or 10 times. So Lebanon is blessed by God. I truly believe it. The way we manage always to stand up again and fight back. We are blessed by God, but we are blessed also by a community that to the world they don't care, but yes, we do care. We still have our humanity. Our humanity is what keeps us going, what keeps us fighting for our survival. It's very rich in humanity. It's very rich in heritage, in art and culture, in love. Unfortunately, in war and crisis, but this is only one page of Lebanon. Lebanon is very colorful with many pages.
Now, for the final and perhaps the most important question, it's very important to us that anyone listening to this podcast can hear the stories and then take action. The purpose of knowledge is as action, is well-informed action. So if anyone listening to this wants to help Ahla Fawda and any of the people that you've talked about, any of the stories that you've shared with us, what can they do? Where should they go?
I am find the Eco Hub as a community center that will bring answers to anybody of any interest, of any needs in the country. Anyone who needs education, anyone who needs upskilling, anyone who cares for the environment, anyone who needs equal opportunities and don't have it. So my focus and dream is on how to make the Eco Hub a full sustainable operation that supports the community in the maximum way we can. So, all support is needed of any kind. I'm happy to answer any questions to anyone who's interested to know more. The Eco Hub supports in food, in clothes, in education, in art, culture, in the the Eco Hub is a community center that covers our community needs, rich or poor. And I really want to focus on making it full circular operation to expand and to give more opportunities and that. So it is my main focus because the community is my focus. So I find very parallel between community and the Eco Hub. And I can give more impact to the community by making the Eco Hub grow. So both can grow together.
And are people able to donate directly to Ahla Fawda?
Yes, we have a GoFundMe on our page, and we do have a bank account that they can donate to. And we do accept in-kind donations as well. And any word of kindness is a major donation. So we're grateful to everything.
One, if I'm being honest, I'm at a loss for words on how to respond to some of the stories that you've shared with us today, but it's very important that people do hear these stories. And speaking for myself, and I'm certain for Milos as well, I have a deep respect for your courage and your strength and the way that you are dedicating your life to help people when I think a lot of other people might choose to look the other way. Having spoken with you the last couple of days, and seeing that up close for myself, I mean, I'll never forget that. So thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. But to be honest, it's people who are helping me. So I am learning every day. My life is enriched by the people in it, by the team I work with, who are also sharing the same passion and vision. So I'm not doing for the people are doing for me. And I'm grateful for every minute of that. And thank you. Thank you.
Imane, thank you so much. It's really been a great honor speaking to you and learning from you. And I'm sure everyone who listened has something to take away from today. And I personally look forward to staying in touch.
Thank you.
This has been an episode of the St. Martin's Cloak Podcast. Today is February 16th, 2026. Thank you for listening and stay safe. And for our friends in Lebanon, شكرا كتير لأصحابي بلبنان من منظمة أهلا فوضى. وأهم شيء شكرا إنكم شاركتوني أساسكم. Thank you for everything.